Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the 10-minute book talk where three best-selling authors talk all things bookish with you for 10 short and sweet minutes. I'm your host today, Rachel Linden, and I am joined by my wonderful co-hostesses, Katherine Reay and Marie Bostwick. And today we have someone that we have had on before, and we are so excited to have her again because she is always a fabulous interview. She writes a book that is always enjoyable, and she's a lot of fun. We have Bethany Turner with us with her new rom-com, Cole and Layla Are Just Friends. And it is such a cute cover. It's giving me all it looks like fall. Does it take place in
It's
fall?
it's fall.
Fall
Yeah.
in New York, all the fall in New York vibes. Adorable.
Yeah.
It's out now. So as soon as you hear this interview and you're like, I need that book in my life, you can run and get it.
Go get it.
Bethany, thanks for being with us. And can you tell us a little bit about your new book?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I love this time with you guys. I'm so grateful that you had me back. Yeah, so the new book, Cole and Layla Are Just Friends, a love story. It is set in the same world, though it is not a series. It is a standalone, but it's set in the same world of my previous book, which was called Bren and Sebastian Hate Each Other, a love story. So we're just, trope right in the title. It's obviously a friends to more, but it's these two lifelong, I mean, and we mean lifelong, like born together basically, and have lived their entire lives as best friends. And in this tiny little town of Adelaide Springs, Colorado, where there were five of them who went to school together and kind of grew up together. And these two were the two that stuck it out together through it all, as everyone else kind of had their crazy life things take them away or whatever. And so yeah, but then when some things happen that are completely seem to be from left field, some family betrayal, it seems like on the surface, kind of sends Cole spiraling a bit and leads to a week in New York where maybe everything changes.
So fun. Okay, so I'm going to ask the first question here because I thoroughly enjoyed Bryn and Sebastian Hate Each Other, a love story. And what made you decide to pick ancillary characters? It's a two-part question to go on. And for your next book, are we going to see another one go on? Like, intriguing.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. Um, yeah, it was okay. Here's the shortest version I can possibly give of this actually really long answer to all of that. Um, I actually started about 10 years writing a book with these two characters, Wes and Addie. And if anyone who's read Bren and Sebastian and Cole and Layla, they know that Wes and Addie were two of the five that grew up together. But they're not in town anymore. They have these different lives. All these things are happening. I wrote this story, like I said, started it 10 years ago, but because Wes is a presidential candidate and the front runner to be elected president, I've been faced with 10 years of publishers saying, we're not touching it with a 10-foot pole because of the state of politics. And I have said over and over and over and over and over again, I can't stress enough, this has nothing to do with politics. You'll never know what he stands for. You'll never, I just love, like, I love American president which
pressures
scandal,
on that, like on
like
an individual, I mean, just,
yes,
yeah.
yes. And the romance that I think can be built in when you're choosing between, maybe being leader of the free world or being with this woman you love. I enjoy that as a romance person. Um, so so that was it. And so what I basically did then was create the town that was around them and that had been created around them. I'm like, fine, if I never get to write their story, I still love these side characters. I love this town.
Oh,
And
fun.
that really became the basis then. And then I kind of used aspects of the story because, hey, I'm never going to get to write this story. So part of that became Bren's story in Bren and Sebastian of having to go back to her hometown and all of this. And well, then we have these side characters of Cole and Layla. And I'm happy to say right now I'm in edits for Wes and Addie Had Their Chance, which will come out next year. It's
That's
like,
so
okay,
fun.
I reverse engineered my way into this one finally. So
Oh,
I
God.
don't know if
That's
I
a
answered the
long
question,
game.
but there we go.
That was a
We're
great
playing
answer.
a long game on that one.
Yeah.
It was a
Long
good,
game.
yeah, but
There.
the moral of the story is like, don't
Perseverance.
give up. Yeah,
Here you end up with like
throw
three
the
books.
outline away.
Yep.
Yeah. So
You
true.
never
Exactly
know.
right.
Yeah,
Never know.
yeah. So awesome. Well, something we have noticed about you, my dear, is that you really love New York City and you've set some other books there. What is it about and the Big Apple that draws you to set your novels
You know, there is something about the city. I mean, it is my favorite city on earth that I've been to, and something about me feels at home there. And I don't, it's like there is the rhythm and the tempo and the soundtrack and the smells and I think it is a love or hate for a lot of people, but for whatever reason, I do love it. The reason I love setting stories there, though, really is that, you know, even within this little tiny island, depending on which block you set everything on, you've got a completely different community. You've got a different background. You've got how you were brought up varies, you know, and you've got like if you put people on the Upper West Side, there are people who never leave the Upper West Side in their entire lives. Their entire world is there, and there's plenty there. And yet you go, you know, a few more blocks up and it's literally a different world. And so that fascinates me because I love that. And so it was really fun with Cole and LAILA in particular, though, of them being these small town Colorado kids. And I loved the idea of throwing them into the deep end of New York City and just kind of taking them so far out of their comfort zone. And I think there's no place better to do that than New York. You know, there's just nowhere else that is as extreme, I feel like.
Yeah, nice.
I love it. All right, so I have a question for you. You write low spice romances with sizzle and humor, which I love. And I'm curious, what do you think are some of the top hallmarks of a good rom-com? And then what do you think that your books are offering to readers in this genre?
Oh,
Aha, two-part humdinger.
Two-part
fastball by
humdinger.
Rachel.
Woo! Man, loose and fast with those good questions. Okay. You know, okay, some of the hallmarks that I look for in rom-com, I mean, it's so stereotypical to say it, but the banter has to be on point. You know, if you don't, you talk about rhythm. I mean, there has to be a rhythm to it. And there's not one consistent rhythm that's going to always make it great. But it's like, if you look at any of the books or the movie rom-coms that any of us love, it's like we could nail down that banter and what it is about it that we love. So I think that's got to be a huge thing. I think there have to be so many built-in quirks for it to be something I like. Because I feel like in romantic comedy, I want my romantic comedy to be realistic. I don't think we should have to work too hard to find the funny, because life is funny and love is funny and it's there for the taking. So then you really it has to be an observational humor, I feel like. And then, you know, obviously then the humor gets pulled out by the circumstances or the characters' personalities or whatever. But, you know, for me personally, I'm not going to ever be a slapstick comedian. It's just, how does this character look at life through this lens that is funny? And then I think probably I'd say, as far as mine, and this is always the hardest part, like, here's why you should love me. That's always a comfortable question.
We do.
Well, you know, mine are always going to have that pop culture.
Which
I think that's
so fun.
That's one of the biggest things. And I think that there are certainly readers who aren't going to get every reference that I'm making. And I get comments from some who are like, I had no idea what you were talking about. And that's okay. But the thing I love so much about pop culture is, I mean, in its truest form, pop culture created our water cooler moments of yesteryear, you know, which we don't really have anymore. But it's like, of a certain generation, if you say the words "Who Shot JR," we all know what we're talking about. Everyone was there, and it was a moment. And obviously there are other generations who may not share that moment, but in an instant, those of us who experienced it, we're back there. And I think that's the thing I love, is it's almost almost an inside joke, almost a secret language, almost, where if it's done right, which I hope I do it right, and I'd say sometimes I probably do and sometimes I probably don't, but hopefully at least a majority of the readers are I'm transporting them where I want them to be so that they feel what I want them to feel in that moment with the characters. So I think that, and hopefully the banter, and and hopefully making you wait for those fun kisses, which will always be there. But yeah, you got to wait for it.
You gotta wait for it.
You gotta earn
Gotta wait
that.
for it.
The delicious sense of anticipation, the building of
Yes.
anticipation for the happily ever after. All right. Well,
Absolutely.
I love that. And I also think you make characters that are very, very lovable. And not all of them initially, I'm thinking of Bryn.
Bren.
Last one, she's not initially lovable, but she's lovable as you go on, And so I also love your characters because by the end you're like, I want these two people to have a happily ever after. I want that. That's like the hallmark of a good rom-com. You enjoy the ride, but then you want them to have their happily ever after at the end. And I think you do that beautifully.
Thank you.
All right, Bethany Turner, I have one question left for you. And this is what we ask all of our authors here on the 10-Minute Book Talk. What is bringing you joy today?
Annabelle Monaghan is bringing me joy.
As she does.
We adore her.
Yes.
It had been, there are so many authors that I love, but I will say it has been many moons since I've been as obsessed with anyone as I am Annabelle Monaghan. And so I'm listening to Summer Romance. Finally, I finally had time to listen to it. And just like with her past couple, same time next summer and Nora Goes Off Script, everything about it is just, and she has this magical way with, like, I struggle reading rom-com a lot of times because I'm either jealous I didn't think of it, or I think of how I might have done it differently.
Let's be honest, we all have those moments.
Let's be honest. But Annabelle Monaghan has this magical ability to just transport me, and I am no longer a writer. I become a reader, and I adore her, and she brings me great joy.
Love that. Love it when authors bring other authors joy. I mean, seriously,
that's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
So we will not only tag you, we will tag her.
Tag Annabelle.
Yes.
Like, Annabelle, you're at the end.
She's going to be like, again? Is this woman ever going to leave me alone?
Can you hold your book up for us?
Yes.
All right. Bethany Turner, Cole and LAILA Are Just Friends. If you guys are looking for a low spice, but still sizzly with all the fun, fluttery feels book about friends to lovers, you're going to really enjoy this one. And it's a great summer read and a great fall read too, because it's set in fall in New York. So read it now, read it in October, whatever. Just go out and get yourself a copy and then buy one for your friend. Thank you, Bethany, for being with us.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, readers and listeners, for joining us, and join us next week for more 10-Minute Book Talk fun. We'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye, everybody.